everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of News for Normies. I am Millennial Meditations, your host, bringing you a week's worth of news in a somewhat short time frame. I imagine this week will be a pretty long episode, so stay in it till the end. Got a lot to talk about, a lot of podcast drama to go into, and more than that. So if you enjoy this content, make sure you hit the like button, share, subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed on Rumble and Spotify, because YouTube may ding me for some music I use later in the video, and obviously doesn't like people like myself. And as always, links to everything down in the description below, right there if you're watching on video. That way you know I'm not just coming up with shit out of thin air like Candace Owens likes to do. So, also go follow me on Twitch. With Christmas coming up, I may take a break from like the news stuff, but I plan on doing some more streaming during the Christmas break. So follow me over there if you want to stay in touch. All right, business stuff out of the way, self-promo out of the way. Let's get into the news. So this first story actually happened last weekend, right before I recorded, was when it kind of became apparent. But Tim Pool, who does a very, very large podcast, his house was shot at early in the morning of December 6th, so a week ago as I record this. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but this is very concerning given the current political climate. Normally, I'd say it was a left-wing lunatic, but I'm not so convinced this time, and this next story will explain why. Candace Owens, who has been in the limelight for far too long and needs to go away, recently claimed that Tim Pool's brother tried to murder him in December of 2022. However, the situation that she is talking about that occurred did not involve his brother whatsoever. Tim has explained time and time again that somebody broke into his property, one of the two that he owned at the time, and an armed security guard fired a shot at the people that broke in. Because of these lies, Tim had this to say about Candace Owens.
It's Huey says, Tim, I work in construction and experienced the same thing. My coworkers are all in on the Charlie Kirk conspiracies. If the Republicans lose in the midterms, I believe that Candace Owens is wholly responsible. She is one of the biggest podcasts on the right doing everything to go to war with the organization that helped get Trump elected. Turning Point specifically was going out and registering people to vote. Without Charlie, it's in trouble. Turning Point needs to be able to go out and rally young people and register them to vote. And she's doing everything she can to destroy that. And that is going to, I suppose, it's going to rip out the coffers on the right. There is no organization like Turning Point that exists anywhere else that has the resources and the reach. And without Charlie, I'm not sure that they can make it. But I can tell you this, Candace lighting a Molotov and throwing it through the window is not helping. And it's the most demoralizing thing ever. Additionally, all of the fucking cowards on the right who are too scared to say anything about her. Because she tweets at me talking shit or whatever, and then a bunch of people come and flood our chat. I could give a single flying fuck. You can come and you can burn everything I have to the ground, and I will happily live in a van down by the river. I don't care to be number one. I don't need to be number one. What I care about is what is true and what will help this country and what works. And she is a fucking scumbag, okay? And she's getting worse every day. And she crossed the line. She continually crosses the line every day, insinuating that Turning Point literally killed the guy who made them all rich. And I hear this in the streets, and at a certain point, I'm like, holy shit, we're gonna lose the midterms. We're gonna lose the midterms, then we're gonna lose in 2028, and it's because she's a piece of shit. Because instead of saying, guys, let's come together and figure out how to work together, she says the stupidest retarded crap. And now everybody's running around divided and broken. For what reason? For literally what reason? Now, guess what? I'm not on the best of terms with Turning Point either. In case you didn't remember, they didn't invite us this year, and it's become a big thing or whatever. I have nothing. I can say I know what they are. I know what they do, and I'm glad they do it. And if we don't get along, so be it. I don't know that they make it without Charlie, whatever. But what is the purpose of intentionally fanning the flames for 3 endless months of just nonstop retard shit. Candace, holy crap. You know, initially in the beginning, she brought up some interesting things. New photos had emerged, and I said, wow, I even said this to Andrew Colvett at Turning Point at the beginning of October. Now she's at the point where it is video after video where she's saying it's an inside job. She's saying like, there's a video of the dude, Mikey McCoy, grabbing his phone and making a phone call, and she's acting like that's weird. And then you get this other guy who's claiming that the business is a parking lot. Well, he full well knows businesses can be registered anywhere. To be fair, it's not only just Candace and saying what she's saying. It is all of these people who are like piranhas ripping the right to shreds. And you know what? A lot of cowards on the right being unwilling to say anything about it. Well, this is where we go. The Democrats are trying to find a way back to reality. They published this thing where they said, oh, we've got to, it's called Deciding to Win. And they said, we have to address kitchen table issues. Like hell, I would ever vote for someone like Elizabeth Warren or Gavin Newsom. But what I think is likely to start occurring now is the grifter right is cannibalizing itself. You are going to see the right now move from a populist base more to a neocon base. Democrats are going to go to war internally over the far left, and you'll see the emergence now of these deciding to win types, which, like Stephen A. Smith, will start agreeing with people like me and Joe Rogan. And they're going to try and win back the ground, and they're going to utilize the absurdity, psycho-reality of Candace Owens to rip people from the right so that Democrats can start winning again. And that is the reality the right has to contend with. Conservatives had a coalition. Charlie helped build it. Disaffected liberals came on board. People like Candace are intentionally burning it to the ground. Stephen A. Smith is coming out. Bill Maher even now coming out more reasonably. The Democrats are going to reemerge. Those that sold their souls for woke and to COVID are going to lose out, and they're going to retire. The AOC types, you're going to see her desperately try to moderate. But we're going to see in these swing districts, they're going to try. Now, that being said, hyperpolarization, as I've already described, may affect New York and Los Angeles and Chicago. So we will see it. Maybe it all just gets ripped apart anyway, and you end up with 15 different factions all fighting for power in the federal government. All I can say is it is frustrating to look at everything that's happening in the world and realize, for a brief moment, my friends, maybe it's a little bit too black-pilled, but I'll say what I'm going to say. It looks like victory. A year ago, it wasn't a long, protracted election. It was a snap and done. Trump won. Wow. And then one by one, cracks in this coalition begin to form. For whatever reason, the falling of Daily Wire, the ousting of Jeremy Boring, he's gone. Whatever it is going on with Daily Wire, I have no idea, but for some of these guys, their views have gone down. There's been heavy critiques. There's the Israel and anti-Israel rights now fighting each other. You see these cracks forming. You get the Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes dispute, and now Candace Owens is trying to burn down Turning Point. And so what it feels like to me is we're watching the ship sink.
So there you have it. Tim not mincing words, and I completely agree with him. Candace Owens is the biggest problem that we have on the right today. More so than Nick Fuentes, but I'll get to him here in a minute too. So I'm inclined to believe at this point that it was a fan of Candace that shot at Tim's home and not a left-wing lunatic that we've seen in the past. As you know, Candace has a very, very large following on social media, and her fans are just as fucking retarded as she is. So, yeah. Now, thanks to this post from Ayal Jacobi, my apologies if I'm getting your name wrong, we can see that Candace has claimed the following were involved in the murder of Charlie Kirk. Israel, a B cult, the Deep State, TPUSA, the FBI, Trapdoor, whatever that means, Mormons, Britney Spears, okay, Egyptian plane, the Trump administration, Erica Kirk, the feds, Charlie's friends, Kash Patel, Brigitte Macron, MK Ultra, and the latest conspiracy theory that wasn't on this list, the United States military. So, as I stated the week of Charlie's murder, the only thing I could believe from this list is that some rogue faction within the FBI or CIA wanted Charlie dead because of the influence he had on young people. After all, we know that the FBI wanted Martin Luther King Jr. to kill himself for the same type of reason back in the day And weirdly, he ended up murdered too. Yeah, that wasn't connected at all. However, as of right now, the evidence suggests that it was Tyler Robinson who actually had his first court appearance this week, and he was the one that shot Charlie Kirk. Now, I do have questions still, as I have stated time and time again, who all knew about this beforehand that Tyler Robinson was in, connection with. Because after he was killed, or after Charlie was killed, several Discord servers mysteriously shut down, and several people just went dark online. So, weird. I think there's more to this than we already know. However, I don't think that Britney Spears had anything to do with this. She has her own problems. I don't think Charlie Kirk was one of them. So, yeah. Please, 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 for the love of God, stop listening to Candace Owens and go mock her online as well. Because she needs taken down a peg. I do not wish to see any physical harm come to her, her husband, or anybody that she knows and loves, or any of her family. Just some public humiliation would do this crazy bitch some good. Now, Erica Kirk has called out Candace Owens for spreading lies and essentially trying to tear down TPUSA, as she said on Fox News.
Come after me, call me names, I don't care. Call me what you want, go down that rabbit hole, whatever. But when you go after my family, my Turning Point USA family, my Charlie Kirk Show family, when you go after the people that I love, and you're making hundreds and thousands of dollars every single episode going after the people that I love because somehow they're in on this, no.
I have to say it. I've never seen you like this.
No, this is righteous anger because this is not okay. It's not healthy. This is a mind virus. Yes, I believe in our judicial system. I do. We have a hell of a team working on this. Excuse my French. But this is not okay.
So you want to put these people back in the box where they've been creeping from?
I don't care what box you're in. But just know that your words are very powerful, and we are human. My team are not machines, and they're not robots. They are human. We have more death threats on our team and our side than I have ever seen. I have kidnapping threats. You name it, we have it. And my poor team is exhausted. And every time they bring this back up, what are we supposed to do? Relive that trauma all over again? They watched my husband get murdered. I have no idea how I would have reacted if I was there that day. And thank the good Lord that I did not have to see that happen. But my team, they are rocked to the core. So why every single day do they have to be dragged through the mud, analyzed, hyper-analyzed? Sit in a corner and cry and be in fetal position. This is a duty to my husband, and it's an absolute honor, and I will never back down. And so my message to them is to stop. To stop.
And that's what we will say here on Outnumbered 2.
Erica also called for Candace to stop spreading lies, as you see here.
The podcaster Candace Owens, okay? At one time, a friend of Charlie's, at one time, an employee of Turning Point. She has been one of the main peddlers of these conspiracies, and she is making a huge amount of money on it. She is building her business off of these lies. What do you want to say to her and the other people that are putting these lies out into the world right now?
Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop.
But Candace refused, despite saying she would in the past. So here's 2 clips back to back to show you how full of shit Candace Owens is.
No one, and I mean absolutely no one, outside of my husband and Erica Kirk has the power to shut me up right now. That's it. Butterfly writes, Candace, you mentioned several times that if Erica asked you to stop, you would, in fact, stop. Will you honor her request? Please stand by your word and honor what Charlie left behind. Prayers to you. I was very clear here. Erica asked me to stop lying, and I will immediately abide by that request. Candace is lying. What do you want to say? Please stop. Please stop lying. I understand. I comprehend. What I don't comprehend is what I've lied about. Have I made errors along the way? Yes. But as soon as she tells me what it is I've lied about, I will cease lying immediately.
So at this point, I hope Erica / TPUSA sues the shit out of Candace Owens and takes her down. Again, don't want any physical harm to come to her. I am not advocating for that whatsoever. I am not a leftist. I do not advocate for that. But, after all, Alex Jones was sued for claiming that the Sandy Hook shooting was a hoax, but then retracted the statement the next day, and Alex lost that case. So this seems like an easy case to take down Candace, unless she's a tool by the deep state to fracture the right in the United States. After all, her lawyers work out of the same building that the feds do. So, you can't tell me that there's no talk at all between her lawyers and the feds that work in that same building. Yeah, water cooler talk? No, that doesn't happen whatsoever. Not at all. Okay, moving on to Nick Fuentes. He was recently on Piers Morgan's show and says Hitler was pretty cool.
Do you regret saying that?
Saying a fact? No, that's absolutely true.
You think Hitler was very fucking cool?
Yes, I do.
One of them.
And I'm tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest.
This is the.
Yeah, so that shows you all you need to know about Nick Fuentes. But I think in this same interview, Nick actually fired back at Piers for some other stuff. I saw online that Piers Morgan basically lets his wife go sleep around with a bunch of other dudes. So, yeah, get your own affairs in order, I guess. But also, Nick Fuentes is a shitbag. But just like Candace Owens, Nick is probably a tool too. On a recent episode of Drinkin' Bros Fake News, Dan Holloway broke down how Fuentes quickly rose to popularity online due to bot farms. If you want to go in depth with that, I will link that down below as well. It's a link on Spotify, best way to listen to their podcast, which is a great podcast, by the way. Now, moving on, a man was arrested for stalking Benny Johnson and making threats against Johnson and Matt Walsh. Benny Johnson posted this on X with the guy's mugshot, so here you go with that. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but sadly, this seems to be the new norm for left-wing advocacy. And more podcast drama. Tucker Carlson recently interviewed Sheikh Mohammed from Qatar and says he plans to buy a house in Doha.
I've been personally, not to make it about me, but I have been criticized as being a tool of Qatar. And I just want to say what you already know, which is I've never taken anything from your country and don't plan to. I am, however, tomorrow buying a place in Qatar, both because I am
pay a high check
in Doha, yeah, and I'm doing that because I like the city. I think it's beautiful, but also to make the statement that I'm an American and a free man, and I'll be wherever I want to be, which I think is important. But that does kind of leave us in a place where I have not taken any money from Qatar. I have instead given money to Qatar. And I wonder if you feel that that means I've bought you and you will now spew my propaganda.
Well, thank you. Just ask me whatever you want me to do for you, I will do it. But look, Tucker, unfortunately, as I told you, that there are a lot of players putting a lot of efforts to sabotage the relationship between Qatar and the United States and to try to demonize anyone who will come to this country. Our efforts, when we are lobbying or doing, our outreach in the United States, is to make sure that this relationship is safeguarded. And the relationship for us is mutually beneficial. We are not getting aid from United States. Instead, we are buying from United States. We are partnering with them. We are investing in the United States investing in Qatar. And this relationship has been always a two-way relationship.
So maybe Barry Weiss was right about Tucker after all. I know, I think it was last week or the week before, I kind of pushed back on that, but now I'm starting to agree with her. It's also funny that a Christian man such as Tucker Carlson is planning on buying a home in a predominantly Muslim country where Christians are only permitted to express their religion in one designated area, and Qatar has been implicated internationally for funding terrorist organizations. So, yeah, again, Tucker seems to be full of shit too. And before I move on to the next story, I would like to give my own personal list of trustworthy podcasters to listen to for your news and a list to stay away from. First, stay subscribed to my channel, as I always advocate for. Obviously, I'm a content creator. I want to bump those numbers up. I do not make any money on this show. I don't have any advertisers, no sponsors, nothing like that. And have no financial incentives to anyone but my own home and my wife. And I do my best to find information that is accurate, but when I am wrong, I correct the record, as I've done in the past, and as well as list my sources in each video, as you can see down below. Also, I believe that Tim Pool, Viva Fry, Benny Johnson, and Drinkin' Bros Fake News are trustworthy outlets for information. And yes, a podcast called Drinkin' Bros does news, and they take shots at both sides of the political aisle. They do not, play favorites. They call balls and strikes. So when Republicans are doing some dumb shit, they call that out, as I do as well. If you can't hold your own side accountable, then you are just a mouthpiece for propaganda. Now, moving on to untrustworthy sources. Obviously, Candace Owens, as she has made it well known, cannot be trusted. Tucker Carlson is really cozying up with shitheads lately. Nick Fuentes is a piece of garbage. And just going to throw some shade here. Breaking Points is utter dog shit too, especially the co-host Crystal Ball. If you don't know what Breaking Points is, it's a news podcast hosted by Sagar and Yeti and Crystal Ball. Sagar, he's okay, I guess. Crystal is absolutely awful. I used to like their show a lot, actually, until Oliver Anthony's song Rich Men North of Richmond came out. And Crystal Ball had some really bad takes on blue-collar people like myself upset with welfare queens buying snack cakes and soda with money stolen from our paychecks. So, in my opinion, Crystal is the epitome of the affluent white female liberal, or awful, AWFL, and her husband Kyle Kulinski is just as awful too. So, if you have any additions to either one of those lists, let me know down below, because I would like to also have accurate information when I present it to the public. And if you think I'm full of shit on either of those lists too, let me know. Let the conversation begin, to quote Garth Brooks. So, moving on. A UK judge sentenced a man named Joey Barton to 6 months in jail for offensive posts.
Given the gravity, persistence and impact of this offending, I have no doubt that neither a fine alone nor a community order can be justified, and that the custody threshold is crossed. There will be concurrent terms of imprisonment for each of these associated offences, the sentences for each reflecting your overall offending and recognising the principle of totality. However, applying the imposition guideline and carrying out the required balancing exercise, I'm satisfied that it's not necessary for those custodial terms to be served immediately. In light of the steps you have taken, I am persuaded that there is some prospect of rehabilitation, that an immediate custodial sentence is not required to protect either the public or the victims, and that a suspended sentence order may itself operate as a deterrent against any future offending by you. For each of these offences, I impose a suspended sentence order of 18 months duration. On counts 2 and 4, the racially aggravated offences, there will be custodial terms of 6 months, and on counts 6, 8, 9 and 10, custodial terms of 4 months, all such terms to run concurrently, and all suspended for a period of 18 months. If during that 18-month period you commit any further offence, whether or not of the same type, you will be brought back before the court, and it is likely that you will be required to serve some or all of that total 6-month period. That, of course, is not an end of the matter. For the next 12 months, you will be subject to a rehabilitation activity requirement of up to 20 days, and, you are required to complete 200 hours of unpaid work in the community.
So this is just the latest story of someone in Europe being arrested being sentenced to jail for freedom of speech. Let's not forget that in 2023, the United Kingdom alone arrested over 12,000 people for offensive posts on social media, but routinely ignore Pakistani rape gangs for raping little girls. Yeah, so the UK has their priorities straight. Also, what's with the goofy wig on the judge? What are you doing, dude? Not only is it ridiculous to sentence a man for offensive post, but it's even more ridiculous to wear a goofy wig from the 1800s while sitting in front of a computer screen. Come on, dude. Like, y'all need to get it together. What is going on there? And also, quick side note, for any Americans that are obsessed with like the British monarchy and the way that Britain does things, we fought a war to get away from them. Okay? You do realize that, right? We fought a very bloody revolution to get away from the crown, so why are you obsessed with it? It's an outdated system and needs to go away. So, in line with that, Elon Musk was fined $140 million. I think it was like 120 million euro. That's about the equivalent. By the EU for essentially allowing free speech in Europe. Apparently, it's more important for Europe to control speech than, for third world barbarians coming into the country and preying on their women and children. So, I have no plans on going to Europe anytime soon. I would love to, but I would probably get arrested as soon as the plane landed. So, no thanks. All right, moving on. More about the media, I suppose. Netflix is trying to buy Warner Brothers. I'm sure people might have heard about this if you pay attention to more economic news. And in my opinion, this would be very bad for the market as a whole because Netflix would then have 33% of the market share. This would also give Netflix more resources to make more woke leftist propaganda. And some of these pieces of propaganda, at least that's what I call it, include Reversing Roe, a documentary about abortion rights, Alt-Right Age of Rage, which tried to paint all white, right-leaning men as domestic terrorists, the documentary Cuties that showcased young girls in suggestive attire, and the upcoming movie Queen of Coal, which depicts a transgender woman, or a man who thinks he's a woman, yearning for the opportunity to work in the coal mines. So hopefully this deal is stopped by some sort of antitrust law, because the last thing we need is more woke propaganda being put out there for people to consume. And if you want an alternative to that, I am not sponsored by them at all. Again, like I said, at this point, I am not taking any money from anybody or sponsors or anything like that. But Angel Studios has really upped their game on content. I think they have a lot of kids shows. Some of the movies they put out are great. The show The Chosen is top quality production. They do a lot of comedy stuff. The Dry Bar comedy is pretty funny. So you have alternatives. And also Rumble exists, and it's an alternative to YouTube. So I tell people to go subscribe there. Okay. Let me get a drink of water. All right. President Trump recently said the affordability crisis is a Democrat hoax.
They're great con people. It's like the Inflation Reduction Act. And after they got it approved, because everybody said inflation reduction, they admitted it had nothing to do with reducing inflation. It's a con job. I think affordability is the greatest con job. They look at you and they say, affordability. They don't say anything else. Everyone says, oh, their prices were so low. No, they had the worst inflation. We had the highest prices we ever had. And now they're all coming down, including beef is coming down.
President Trump really needs to stop calling everything a Democrat hoax, especially when it comes to stuff like this. I've seen people bragging about gas prices lately. In some parts of the country, gas dropped below $2 a gallon, but honestly, $1.99, it's the same thing as $2. Let's be honest. And I know how numbers work, but we all know $1.99, you just say $2 to shorten it. But I'm also calling bullshit on that too. In my area, gas will be around $2.30 per gallon one day, and 12 hours later, it's back up to nearly $3 a gallon. Also, my wife and I are still spending about the same amount on groceries every week that we did a year ago. And my utility bill is still between $200 to $300 a month, when it was around $100 in 2022 when I first bought this house. So again, until these prices come down, you can't spike the football and claim victory. So please stop calling everything a Democrat hoax that you don't like and make some fucking progress. I imagine a lot of average people feel the same way. Excuse me. Now, some good news, I suppose, if you kind of read between the lines. Secretary of HUD Scott Turner says that illegal aliens that came in under the Biden administration caused the housing market problems we have today.
Well, Maria, let's look at the root of it. You talk about during the Biden administration, the failed immigration policies, and that has really had a tremendous impact on our housing supply and housing affordability. When you have over 12 million people coming over our borders unchecked, unvetted, this is straining our housing market from a supply standpoint, from an affordability standpoint. HUD just put out a report and found that between 2021 and 2024, the foreign-born population in our country in just 3 short years is 6 million people, which is the most in that period of time in American history. And so we cannot forego the thought that because of illegal immigration, because of people coming to our country, prices have risen, supply has been squeezed, but we're working very hard at HUD, along with the president and other leaders in the administration, to bring down the cost and raise the supply when they're doing it through interagencies. But we need the Fed to cut rates. We need to continue to deport illegals that are taking houses from the American people. So we're very intentional and focused about it at HUD and across the administration.
Yeah. So this is one factor, albeit a big factor, to that has contributed to the housing market issues that we see. The more people that are clamoring for houses leads to prices going up, supply and demand. So the more illegal aliens that are deported should, quote unquote, should have an impact on making housing more affordable to American citizens, people that belong here in this country, whether they are native born or went through the process to become a legal citizen of this country. But speaking of illegals, Ilhan Omar says Somalis aren't going anywhere.
Somalis are not terrorizing this nation. We are helping it thrive. Somalis have always seen themselves as a fabric of this nation. So not only are we not going anywhere, we are not going to allow anybody to make us feel less Minnesotan or less American.
Now, I will admit this clip is a little bit old, but it's relevant to what we're going to be talking about here. And that's also fun for her to say, but the DOJ and ICE would disagree. Also, this Vietnamese guy went viral this week because of his remarks about the Somalis here in the United States.
Since when the fuck did we have to bow down to certain communities? Look, I'm Asian, I'm Vietnamese, okay? When we have our own communities too, and our communities thriving. You know, we have businesses. We've been here only, less than 50 years after the 1975. Our communities are thriving throughout the United States. If you look at our numbers, there's only about 2 million of us here in the United States. And out of that 2 million people that we have, majority of us have businesses, scientists, engineers, doctors, bright mind people that given back to this country more than we've taken. And we have never asked anybody to bow down or speak our language, okay? Since when the fuck this stupid ass mayor of the little pirate motherfucking land pirate Somalian in Minnesota have to speak their language and apologizing for those motherfucking crook ass pirates? Since when we have to do that? This is just a fucking crook, and he's a Jewish dude. What a shame, you know? What a shame. What the fuck's wrong with him?
So I can't find any fault in his logic except about his claims there at the end about the mayor of Minneapolis. I don't know what that's all about, but I also can't help but notice he kind of has a southern twang to his voice, so I find that kind of funny. And honestly, I'd rather have people like him than Somalis in the United States, especially considering over 80% of Somalis in Minnesota are on some form of public welfare. Also, I recently had Vietnamese food, and it was pretty good. I'll go on the record and say that I have no desire to try Somali food, especially after watching this.
Jacob fry or unaya. Jacob, hey?
Try. Can I try it?
Yes, try it. Mix it. It's delicious.
What is that?
This is ambulo. What do you say, ambulo?
Ambolo.
Mayorka Minneapolis waxa uu caawa ku casheynayaa ambulo waa culture-ka reer koonfur galbeed. Waa kana.
So if you're just listening on audio, that was Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry trying a Somali dish called ambulo. And even though his words say it is delicious, his face says the exact opposite. So, yeah, gonna just leave that alone there. I'm good on Somali food. Now, last week I talked about the Medicaid fraud in Minnesota from the Somali communities there. But turns out it's not just in Minnesota. Mihek Cook, I think I'm pronouncing her name right, an attorney here in my home state of Ohio, recently appeared on Fox News and had this to say.
One is Medicaid, and one especially dealing with children claiming to be autistic. And as Dr. Oz has pointed out on the show, those numbers went from the low millions to hundreds of millions in a 5-year period of time, and the percentage of kids that they are claiming were autistic is just astronomical than any other community or state in the entire country. Can you explain it?
Sean, I can tell you that this is despicable. The fact that Democrats were at the helm for 4 years, this happened under their watch. And part of it is because we did not enforce our laws. We didn't have systematic audits. And what I'm seeing in Ohio is just the beginning. The fact that we have the second largest Somalian community here in Columbus, Ohio, 60 to 80,000 Somalians. While they're not all bad and they're not all criminals, many of them, overwhelming number of them, are on Medicaid. And I have 2 now clients that are fearing for their lives because they're being told specifically, we will stone you to death. Sean, that's what they do back in Somalia when they want to kill somebody. They will stone these individuals to death if they come and alarm the bells. The biggest mistake that the Democrat Party has made is not actually enforce their laws. They run from the word anytime we say racism. Well, this is soft bigotry because Somalians should know better. They should know that they should be following the laws. You have individuals now that are scamming the Medicaid system in Ohio. They were trying to push these providers to rubber stamp providing bills so that they could have disability help and so many other things for elderly care when they didn't need it. And when the provider said no.
Let me ask you, though. What stands out to me is the percentage. The percentage of young people that are claiming to be autistic, the percentage of elderly people making claims, the percentage of people that were making claims during COVID to get PPP money.
Well, there's an increasing percentage because let's not forget, we imported these communities to places like Minnesota and Ohio. We didn't import people. We didn't actually look at the law and say, you qualify to come to the United States of America. We imported large communities to come into these different states. And then what we did was organized crime syndicates. You have a country like Somalia, which they're known for their crime and the corruption. We imported that here. So why are we surprised that we had increases in fraud, waste, and abuse? These individuals were able to scam a system because there was no audit, Sean. The Democrats weren't looking. They were looking the other way. Tim Walz knew
that there was fraud back in 2020, he looked the other way because they're the largest voting base for him, the Somalian people. And in Ohio, it's the same story. They figured out a way to find some of these states that have a low bar of entry where they could get a doctor to rubber stamp them. And guess what? Now the doctors and nurses are Somalians. So they're rubber stamping all of this, and it's at the taxpayer expense. People with disabilities are suffering. Families across America, including in Ohio, are suffering. That's what the money was for. So when you ask about the increased percentages, Democrats were looking the other way. They imported a voting bloc. That's the main reason.
He was warned, and we had whistleblowers telling him he didn't care. He didn't want to alienate a large voting bloc in his state. It's that clear. We need to get to the bottom of it. Mehek, thank you. Appreciate it.
So, as she stated, this is largely happening in Columbus, the state capital, which comes to no surprise for me, as it is largely a Democrat city. No surprise. Big cities, largely Democrat. I just saw this story right before recording today, December 13th, so I imagine this will gain some steam as the next week moves on. Also, quick side note, I saw her speak at a Charlie Kirk memorial back in late October, I think it was. So, little bit of familiarity there, albeit very, very small. And this was kind of a funny moment that came up this week. Trump recently asked why we aren't getting immigrants from good countries and why we're getting immigrants from shithole countries.
I've also announced a permanent pause on third world migration, including from hellholes like Afghanistan, Haiti, Somalia, and many other countries. I didn't say shithole, you did. Remember I said that to the senators they came in, the Democrats. They wanted to be bipartisan. So they came in and they said, this is totally off the record. Nothing mentioned here. We want to be honest because our country was going to hell. And we had a meeting. And I say, why is it we only take people from shithole countries, right? Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, just a few? Let us have a few. From Denmark, do you mind sending us a few people? Send us some nice people, do you mind? But we always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, right? Filthy, dirty, disgusting, ridden with crime. The only thing they're good at is going after ships.
So the reason we don't get immigrants from countries like Norway and Sweden is because historically they've been safe and their social programs were pretty good. Now, they work because those countries have a much, much smaller population than we do here in the United States. However, when you allow third world barbarians to flood your country, things change quickly. That's why I would say to pause all immigration across the board, get our country in order, and let Europe sort themselves out too. Because, we could pause immigration from Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, places like that, but those people go to Europe, get some sort of citizenship, and then they come here via Europe, and the problem still persists. So pause all immigration, get our effects in order, and move on from there. Now, Illinois is still defying ICE by letting violent illegal aliens out of custody. Since January of this year, more than 1,700 violent criminal aliens have been released from custody in Illinois. And according to Fox News, quote, the agency also said another 4,015 criminal aliens with pending detainers remain in state or local custody, including individuals linked to 51 homicides and more than 800 sexual predatory offenses, end quote. So hopefully those 1,700 people released are found, and the remaining 4,015 are deported quickly. Why the Democrat Party keeps advocating for these people is, well, it's beyond logic, and they're intentionally trying to destroy what we have here. So, if you want to know where the Democrat Party's principles lie, that's where. And that shows from this next story. Zohran Mamdani recently put out this video instructing aliens, illegal aliens, on how to stand up against ICE.
Last weekend, ICE attempted to raid Canal Street and detain our immigrant neighbors. As mayor, I'll protect the rights of every single New Yorker, and that includes the more than 3 million immigrants who call this city their home. But we can all stand up to ICE if you know your rights. If you encounter ICE, these are the things that every New Yorker should know. First, ICE cannot enter into private spaces like your home, school, or a private area of your workplace without a judicial warrant signed by a judge. That looks like this. If ICE does not have a judicial warrant signed by a judge, you have the right to say, "I do not consent to entry," and the right to keep your door closed. Sometimes ICE will show you paperwork that looks like this and tell you that they have the right to arrest you. That is false. ICE is legally allowed to lie to you, but you have the right to remain silent. If you're being detained, you may always ask, "Am I free to go?" repeatedly until they answer you. You are legally allowed to film ICE as long as you do not interfere with an arrest. It is important to remain calm during any interaction with ICE or law enforcement. Do not impede their investigation, resist arrest, or run. One last thing. New Yorkers have a constitutional right to protest, and when I'm mayor, we will protect that right. New York will always welcome immigrants, and I will fight each and every day to protect, support, and celebrate our immigrant brothers and sisters.
I keep saying it, and I'll say it again. The Democrat Party is basically the Communist Party at this point, and they care more about illegal aliens than they do American citizens. So, hopefully some charges come against Zoran for, impeding federal law enforcement and charged in the same manner. Because we, the people, voted for that. We voted for people who don't belong here to be deported back to their homes. That's it. That's literally what we want. Get the economy in order, get illegals out, end of story. Now, this next story, I guess I'll just get into it. U.S. forces seized a Venezuelan oil tanker recently. So apparently this tanker has been sanctioned by the U.S. for allegedly selling oil to other sanctioned countries, trying to skirt U.S. sanctions, and, well, they were trying to fuck around, now they're finding out. Fears of war with Venezuela are rising, but at this point, I just say go for it. Venezuela has been a pain in our ass for too long, mostly about, the fentanyl they're sending here, and has allegedly been working with Islamic terrorist organizations too. So the Venezuelan government needs to go. And, how about we enforce the Monroe Doctrine again? Take care of stuff on the Western Hemisphere and let Europe deal with their own issues. Sound good? Okay, moving on. And speaking of drugs, 2 officials from the Drug Enforcement Agency have been indicted for working with drug cartels. Interesting. Paul Campo and Robert Sensi, I think, were allegedly trying to launder $12 million for the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, as well as providing sensitive DEA information and even supplying military-grade weapons to this cartel. Hopefully the hammer gets dropped on these assholes and they don't walk free like James Comey and Letitia James. Also, this is kind of reminiscent of the Operation Fast and Furious under the Obama administration, where they were selling guns to drug cartels in order to track them, but basically as soon as they got over the US-Mexico border, they were untrackable. So, yeah. Remember when people claimed that the Obama administration didn't have any scandals? I remember, and Pepperidge Farm remembers, and that was bullshit. So, moving on. My apologies here. Throat gets a little dry after you talk for so long. Representative Dan Crenshaw is suing Sean Ryan for defamation, but Eyepatch McCain is essentially trying to silence Sean Ryan for questioning how he became so wealthy. In my opinion, Crenshaw is one of the worst people in Congress, as this is not the first time he's had some controversy come his way for something like this. Crenshaw also had a hot mic leak of him allegedly saying, quote, "If I ever meet him, I'll fucking kill him," end quote, in regards to Tucker Carlson. This comment was over Tucker's stance on Ukraine earlier this year. So for all of you Texans watching this, you have some work to do when it comes to voting. He's yours. Y'all need to vote him out. Also, Jasmine Crockett has announced that she's running for Senate out of Texas. This comes after Texas redistricted and her House of Representatives district is basically no more. So she's trying to stay in politics by running for Senate. Crockett is easily one of the dumbest people in national politics and one of the most racist too. If you don't remember, she made these claims before Congress but made herself look like a fool.
Democrat who's been on defense over Jeffrey Epstein is Stacey Plaskett. She represents the Virgin Islands. She was texting with Jeffrey Epstein the day of Michael Cohen's hearing. Her questions pretty closely followed the text messages between the two of them to ask about Rona Graff, Trump's longtime assistant. You were defending her today, or in recent days, yesterday, and you talked about Republicans taking money from a Jeffrey Epstein. Here's what you said.
Who also took money from somebody named Jeffrey Epstein, as I had my team dig in very quickly. Mitt Romney, the NRCC, Lee Zeldin, George Bush, Win Red, McCain Palin, Rick Lazio.
You mentioned Lee Zeldin there. He's now a cabinet secretary. He responded and said it was actually Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, who's a doctor that doesn't have any relation to the convicted sex trafficker. Unfortunate for that doctor, but that is who donated to a prior campaign of his. Do you want to correct the record on the people that
Listen, I never said that it was that Jeffrey Epstein, just so that people understand when you make a donation, your picture is not there. And because they decided to spring this on us in real time, I wanted the Republicans to think about what could potentially happen because I knew that they didn't even try to go through the FEC. So my team, what they did is they Googled, and that is specifically why I said a Jeffrey Epstein. Unlike Republicans, I at least don't go out and just tell lies. Because it was not the same one, that's fine. But when Lee Zeldin had something to say, all he had to say was it was a different Jeffrey Epstein. He admitted that he did receive donations from a Jeffrey Epstein, so at least I wasn't trying to mislead people.
And she also had this to say about white people in the past.
That's what's happening right now. I am tired of the white tears. Listen, if you are competent, you are not concerned. When I walk into Congress every single day, you know why I don't feel away and why you can't make me doubt who I am? Is because I know that I had to work 10 times as hard as they did just to get into the seat. When you look and you compare me to Marjorie Taylor Greene or me to Lauren Boebert, there is no comparison. And that is the life that we have always lived. So the only people that are crying are the mediocre white boys that have been beaten out by people that historically have had to work so much harder. This is why they don't want us to have education.
So again, Texas, you people really need to get your shit together, as Crenshaw and Crockett are yours to deal with when elections come around. Moving on, a bill to stop funding the Taliban is still being blocked, according to Tim Burchett.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett. As you know, as I've been championing the cause to quit paying the dadgum Taliban $40 million or $45 million, whatever it is, a week. We've given them over $5 billion total since the Biden administration. Every week, we can't stop the bill. We can't get the bill passed in the Senate. It's taken me over a year to get it out of the dadgum House. And we got a fellow over in the Senate who was a staffer, but he was a former, I believe, ambassador to Afghanistan, and his name is what? Tom West. And apparently, our good friend Tulsi Gabbard and the Trump administration denied him his security clearance because of his alleged cozy relationship with the Taliban. And so I suspect that's what's going on in the Senate. That's why there are they're stopping the bill, and people say, well, y'all are in the majority, why don't you just act like it? Well, you got to have 60 votes over there to pass a bill of this significance, and that's the holdup. And we're going to continue to see this kind of nonsense until the country wakes up. And I don't care what party you're in. We shouldn't be paying these people any money. They will hate us for free. All they're going to do is use that money to come at us in a different area and kill Americans and kill our allies. Dadgummit. This is what's going on. I'm letting you know about it. You can make the call. Call your senator if you've got a Democrat senator. This is beyond that. This is actual, in my opinion, corruption. We know this money flows around. We know, Elon Musk told us about it flowing into dark money campaigns. And I think some of this money, I'm not sure if this is or some of the other, but surely it's flowing back into the pockets of politicians in Washington. And if it's a Republican, I hope they haul them out of here in chains. And a Democrat as well, because I don't care. I'm sick of it. We're $38 trillion in debt. We're sending over $40 million a week to the Taliban, and the United States Congress doesn't have the guts to stop it. That's pathetic. Let's fix it. Thank y'all.
Now, I don't know much about Tim Burchett, but he seems like an all right guy in DC, so maybe he's one of the few that are actually decent. Hard to say. Again, I don't know much about him, but as I've said before, if we stop funding every foreign country or organization like Ukraine, Israel, or the Taliban, we the people can stop being taxed so much. I recently saw a statistic that out of the 193 or 96 countries on the face of the planet, we have our tax dollars going to 177 of them. So over 90% of the countries on the face of the earth are receiving U.S. tax dollars. Why are we doing this? It is enough is enough. We, the people, are taxed way too much. And no matter how much the Democrats want to say, people need to make a living wage, and this is a living wage that people need to be paid. If you increase that number that people are being paid, but the percentage of their money is still being taken, you haven't solved the problem. If people keep more of the money that they earn, then you have solved the problem. End of story. And finally, ending with some international politics, turns out Hamas intentionally withheld baby formula in Gaza to foment a famine for political gain. Ahmed Fuad al-Khatib, I think is how you pronounce it, a US-based activist for Palestine and sharp critic of Hamas, posted on X recently about this, saying, quote, "The goal, as I said then, was to worsen the hunger crisis and initiate a disaster as part of the terror group's famine narrative in a desperate effort to stop Israel's onslaught against Gaza and force the return of the UN's aid distribution mechanism and away from the controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF. Now, activists in the Strip are documenting the waste and deliberate disposal of tons of infant formula, nutritional children's shake, I think it meant shakes, and children's powdered milk, which Hamas had hoarded away, given the saturation of the coastal enclave with humanitarian aid after the ceasefire 2 months ago." End quote. So to those who constantly champion how Islam is a religion of peace, this shows you what Islam does to its own people. Children starved to death so Hamas could win some political power. At this point, though, I doubt any long-term peaceful solution will be found there, and this kind of terrorism will continue. So, that's all I've got this week. If I missed anything important, let me know in the comments below. If you think I'm wrong about something, let me know down in the comments below. And share with some Candace fans, because they need to be mocked as well. So with that being said, I will see you all next time, and take care.